Hello, my dears. Welcome to the Spicy Stories channel, where you will find several spicy stories. I want to share with you a story that happened to me. Stay until the end of the video, because you will learn everything about my story that I had never told before. But I plucked up the courage, and I want to extend an invitation to you at the end. I am already happy to see you here, so let's go. My name is Emily Thompson, and at 28 years old, I thought I finally had a stable life. I worked as a journalist at a small New York magazine, lived in a comfortable apartment in Brooklyn, and had a loyal circle of friends. Not that my life was without emotions, but for a long time, I thought the idea of falling in love with two people at the same time was something out of a movie. That is until it happened to me. It all started on an ordinary night, a random Friday. I was at my favorite place in downtown Manhattan, a bar called The Last Call, which had a cozy and relaxed atmosphere. It was the kind of place where you could go alone and still feel like you were in good company. And that's where I met him. Or, rather, both of them. The first one, Luke, was the kind of guy who instantly caught your eye. He had that easy smile and piercing blue eyes, like he was always ready for a conversation. He approached my table with a drink in his hand, as if he already knew me, and said, "Hi, my name is Luke, and I have a feeling we're about to hit it off." I laughed, unable to resist his charm. We talked for hours, swapping stories about our lives, interests, and dreams. The chemistry was immediate, a connection so strong that it almost seemed effortless. The way he looked at me made my heart beat faster. However, what I didn't know that night was that there was another person about to enter my life in an unexpected way. A week later, I went back to the same bar. This time, I was more thoughtful, wondering if that encounter with Luke was just a night of fun or something more. I was trying not to get too excited when suddenly he appeared. But it wasn't Luke who was approaching, it was Ethan. There was something different about Ethan. He wasn't the kind of guy you noticed at first glance, but when he started talking, it was impossible not to pay attention. His brown eyes seemed to read your soul. He had a soft way of communicating, and when he smiled at me, I felt like I was being pulled toward him in a way I couldn't explain. "Hi, Emily, right?" he said, his deep voice seeming to envelop me. I nodded, a little surprised, but soon the conversation began to flow naturally. He was interesting in a very different way than Luke. Ethan was more introspective, more observant. I felt drawn to his calmness, but also to the intensity he carried in every word he said. That night, something changed. The connection between the three of us was inexplicable. Luke and Ethan greeted each other, as if they had known each other for some time. And despite being so different, it seemed like the three energies complemented each other in some way. I didn't know what was happening, but I felt like something big was about to unfold. In the following days, I found myself in an emotional turmoil. Luke asked me out a few times, and whenever we met, there was an exchange of looks and laughter that made me feel alive. He was outgoing, he made me feel like I was the most interesting person in the world, and that was something I had never experienced before. When he first kissed me, it was like a fire ignited with a spark. His passion was contagious, and I gave in to every moment. But then there was Ethan. He was different, but in a way that touched a part of me I didn't know existed. Conversations with him were deeper, almost philosophical. I loved listening to him talk about life, what he thought about the world, and even his thoughts on relationships. When he touched me, it was soft, as if it were something caring and protective. He didn't rush things. Everything seemed slower, more intense. Things got complicated quickly. I knew I was falling for both of them, in different ways. Luke made me feel an overwhelming physical attraction, while Ethan made me question my own beliefs about love and feelings. Each encounter with either of them left me more confused, and I didn't want to give up on either of them. One afternoon, over coffee, Luke asked me directly, "Emily, I like you. I really like you. But I feel like there's something between us, and I don't know what it is. You've been pulling away a little." I didn't know how to answer. How could I explain to him that while my body was craving more of him, my mind was filled with thoughts of Ethan? How could I give myself completely to Luke when Ethan was making me see the world in such a different way? And then one day, they both showed up at the same time, unaware of each other's presence. at an outdoor event in Central Park. It was the first time I'd seen them face to face, and the tension was palpable. I knew that I would inevitably have to make a decision. But instead, I found myself letting them both come closer to me, feeling like maybe I didn't have to make a decision just yet. As the days went by, the situation became increasingly untenable. Luke and Ethan began to realize that something was wrong, that something between was unclear. I found myself in a dilemma. How could I choose between the two of them when both made me feel such different yet equally intense things? It was during a romantic dinner with Luke that the situation reached a critical point. He asked me once again about what I was feeling. I took a deep breath, knowing that I could no longer hide the truth. I was in love with both of them. Luke, I need to be honest, I don't know what's going on, but there's another guy, Ethan. I'm involved with him too, and I don't want to hurt you, but I don't know what to do. He was silent for a moment, looking at me, as if trying to understand what I had just said. He didn't seem surprised, but rather resigned. I understand, Emily. I've felt that there's something different about you since we started seeing each other. Something that I can't quite figure out. If you're with him too, maybe what we need is more time, more space for you to figure out what you really want. It was a difficult conversation, but a necessary one. What I knew was that, regardless of how things ended, my life would never be the same after this. Time passed, and I was finally able to process what I was feeling. I knew that my heart, even though it was divided, had room for both. But what I didn't know was that, in the end, love didn't necessarily mean choosing between one or the other, but rather learning to be honest with my own feelings. And that's what I did. After the conversation with Luke, I spent a few days reflecting on everything that had happened. I knew that something had to change, but at the same time the confusion only grew. I was attracted to Luke in a very physical way, but Ethan touched me on a deeper, more emotional level. It wasn't just about desire, it was about a connection that seemed to transcend the surface of things. I decided to talk to Ethan. I went to his apartment, not knowing exactly what I would say, but hoping to find some clarity. He opened the door with that easy smile, as if he already knew something was about to happen. "Emily," he said softly, inviting me in. "You seem distant. What's going on?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my words. "Ethan, I need to be honest with you too. I'm torn between you and Luke. I know this may be hard to understand, but the feelings I have for you two are completely different, yet intense. I don't know what to do." He didn't react immediately. We sat in silence for a few minutes, and in that silence I could tell he was absorbing everything I was saying. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, but filled with a sincerity that touched me deeply. "I understand, Emily, and I can't ask you to choose right now. What matters most to me is that you're honest with your feelings, and more importantly, that you don't lose yourself in them. You're on a quest for something, for a deeper connection, and I don't think that should be rushed." I felt a sense of peace when I heard those words. He wasn't pressuring me. He wasn't trying to control the situation. Instead, he was giving me space to be who I really was, without judgment. That night, after our conversation, I felt something different. I wasn't ready to give up anything, but I realized that I needed to start looking at both of them in a more honest way, without idealizations or fantasies. I was falling in love. Yes, but I also needed to understand what each of us really wanted. It was the following weekend that something unexpected happened. Luke called me, inviting me to a more relaxed meeting, without pressure, he said. Without thinking much, I accepted. When we arrived at the restaurant, he seemed more relaxed, as if he already knew what was going on in my head, but preferred to take it easy. We talked about our lives, about work, about what made us laugh. And then he asked directly, but without imposing, "Emily, have you thought about what's going on between us? Because to be honest, I really like you, and it makes me a little anxious." I looked at him, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't confused. I knew what I needed to do, but I needed to be honest with myself. So I looked him in the eye and said, "Luke, I like you too. I really like you, but I need to be honest. I don't know if I'm ready to commit, because I'm still trying to figure out what I'm feeling. It's not that I don't want this, but I need more time to figure out what my heart really wants." He was silent for a moment, before smiling softly, as if he were relieved. "I understand, Emily. I just want you to be true to yourself. Let's give it time and we'll see where it takes us. I'm not going to force anything." That conversation was a relief because I could finally express myself without fear. Something was changing inside me. I was beginning to understand that love didn't have to be rushed. It could be complex, but it could also be simple, as long as it was true. The next few days were a time of introspection for me. I continued to date both of them, each date bringing me more clarity about what I really wanted. With Luke, I still felt a burning attraction, but at the same time, I was beginning to realize that that wasn't all I needed. He offered me excitement, intensity, and endless fun. But with Ethan, I was beginning to see something deeper. Every conversation with him made me question the preconceived ideas I had about love and relationships. I knew I couldn't continue with this duality for much longer. I needed to make a decision, but that didn't mean giving up on someone. It meant figuring out where my heart really lay. Love shouldn't be a competition. Instead, it should be a choice that honored what was truest to me. One afternoon, I decided to summon up the courage to have a conversation with both of them. I knew it would be difficult, but I also knew it was the right thing to do. I arranged a meeting in Central Park, where it all began. Luke arrived first, with that usual smile, and Ethan soon followed with the thoughtful look that always made me feel at home. "Emily," Luke said, looking at me, "I realize how torn you are, and I respect that. I like you, and I know you need space to figure out what you feel. I'm not going to force anything. I just want to see you happy." Ethan, always so attentive, just watched me with a calm expression. "Me too. I just want you to know that, whatever your choice is, I'll support you. But more than anything, I hope you find what truly makes you happy." I looked at them both, feeling a sense of peace, but also of regret. I knew I was leaving behind a possibility of life with both of them, but I also knew that the choice I made at that moment would be the best for me. I took a deep breath, looking at each of them sincerely. "I've decided that I'm going to follow my heart. I can't choose between you two, and I'm not going to. What I can do is be honest with myself and with you. I'm not ready for a commitment right now, because I'm figuring out what I really want. And for now, I need time." They both smiled, as if they understood the importance of that. Luke gave me a tight hug and Ethan put a hand on my shoulder in a comforting gesture. I left that meeting feeling like I was closer to who I really am. I didn't need to make a radical decision. What I needed was to be true to my own feelings and let life take its course. The following months were filled with personal growth. I learned to understand my feelings and accept the complexity of human relationships. Luke and Ethan remained in my life, each in their own unique way. There was no more confusion, just respect for my choices and the time I needed to discover what I really wanted. Love, I learned, is not always simple nor always straightforward. Sometimes it comes in unexpected forms and manifests itself in ways that defy our expectations. But in the end, what really matters is being true to yourself and allowing others to do the same. I still didn't know what the future held for me, but one thing was certain: I was ready to live it with an open heart. I'm glad you made it this far. Now I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, to receive all of our videos. Like, share, and leave in the comments what you thought of my story. I promise I'll read and like your comment. I'll stop here and see you in the next video. Okay? See you then.